The Illinois High School Association is a statewide organization meant to regulate sports at the high school level. To promote fair matchups in any sport or activity, IHSA schools with a similar number of students are grouped together into divisions or classes. These classes are referred to with a number followed by the letter A. Different sports have varying number of divisions. In boys football last year, there were 8 classes. The smallest of these was 1A, the largest was 8A. 1A included schools of 0 to around 320 students, while 2A included those with 321 to 427. 8A schools have more than 2,400 students. Additionally, a measure often referred to as the multiplier tries to make up for the fact that private schools are seen as having a recruiting advantage. Any non-boundaried, which really just means private, school wishing to compete in IHSA activities will have their student enrollment counted and listed as being 1.65 times the actual number of students at that school. For instance, a private school of 100 would be counted as a school of 165. This causes private schools such as Hales Franciscan of Chicago that are truly only the size of a 1A school to compete in 2A football. Although Champaign's St. Thomas More has an enrollment of only 283, they compete in 3A football as a school with an enrollment of 467. If a school is placed in too difficult of a class and goes on a long-term losing streak, it can apply for a multiplier waiver, allowing it to compete in the lower class that it would belong in as a public school. And now that we've established some IHSA basics, it's time for the important part. A huge threat to fairness in the IHSA has arisen, and it's called the bump. IHSA Board Policy 17 seeks to force athletic programs that have consistent success to be bumped up into a higher, more difficult class. In theory, this measure is intended to prevent dominant programs from winning year after year. The idea is that while the multiplier is painting all private schools with the same broad brush, the bump targets specific programs to put them in the class where they belong. But is that really fair? The first thing to consider is that a class bump is a very inconsistent penalty to apply across every sport. Football has 8 classes. A bump from 1A to 2A is barely even noticeable. Cross country, on the other hand, only has 3 classes. Girls from St. Teresa High School in Decatur have won the 1A state title 4 years in a row. And next year, they'll be bumped up, which seems fair until you look at how next year's team would have fared in 2A. They'd have been crushed. They wouldn't have placed in 1A either, and rather than allowing St. T's runners a chance at continued success, the IHSA is choosing to put a ball and chain on every St. T runner for the next 3 years. St. Teresa's enrollment is somewhere around 265 students. With the multiplier, its enrollment is 437. However, with this new policy applied, St. Teresa, a school of 265 students, would be placed in the same division as Crystal Lake Central, a school of 1,571 students. That's a school 6 times their size, and the affected school won't be able to recover for 3 whole years. Most likely, the entire team that was given the success factor penalty will be gone by then anyway. Second of all, this new policy will force many schools outside the Chicagoland area to drive hundreds of miles to compete with schools in their division, which goes directly against the IHSA's suggestion to encourage economy of both time and money. Bloomington Central Catholic has a solid volleyball squad, and I hope that they like road trips because even though there's only 362 students at the school, should they continue to find success, they'll be playing 4A schools of over 1,400 up north. Third, this new policy also creates athletic safety concerns because having huge schools compete with tiny ones at contact sports is an awful idea, and this new policy is encouraging it to happen. Most likely, bigger schools will have larger linemen, taller ballers, and speedier sprinters simply because they have larger rosters and more people to fill them. But here's the most important part. The bump, just like the multiplier, only affects private schools. That's right, because only private schools winning isn't fair. Meanwhile, Maine South and Bolingbrook will continue to dominate 8A football up north because they have nowhere higher to be bumped up. Maroa, Forsyth, and Rochester will continue tearing up their respective classes in central Illinois, and DeQuoin will continue dominating southern Illinois. They're all public schools, yet they won't be affected by this new policy. Punishing success is one thing, but punishing the success of a select group of schools is discrimination. If we really need the bump, then why not have it affect everyone? Private schools already have the multiplier to deal with. Shouldn't that be enough? You're probably wondering by now how this new policy ended up passing, and the simple answer is that it didn't. A committee was commissioned during June of 2013 that met 3 times to discuss this issue. 3 times. These are the people that served on that committee. These guys unanimously voted to recommend that the board of directors adopt Policy 17, which it did without hesitation, putting it into effect starting next year. It would appear that the IHSA board of directors may have forgotten about 2/3 of their amendment process because Policy 17 was basically an executive order that went into effect without any ratification or voting by the IHSA's member schools. And that's wrong. High school sports are an exceptional privilege to support and be a part of. That's why we, anonymous students, have decided to take action. We want fairness. We need your help. Show your support by signing our online petition. And please,